6:01. And would everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, we have a couple of items to add to the agenda this evening to amend. I'd like to add number 4 to new business. Fire station sign. And number 2 to old business, roll-off truck for DPW, actually for transfer station.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to also add, under new business, if we could, a brief discussion of our experience with the new voting machine during the election process.
Okay. Number 5.
I make a motion, we approve the November 12th, 2024 agenda as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The public participation policy applies to all selectmen meetings. A copy of it is in the back of each agenda, posted outside this meeting room and on our website. Public input for any agenda items only. Seeing none. No appointments this evening. We'll go right to new business, New Hampshire Electric Co-op presentation. Come on up.
Sure, absolutely.
Sure.
We're really here to have a discussion with you guys, so
Okay.
we'll try to make it brief and then, we're happy to talk about it.
Thank you.
If you don't mind just introducing yourselves and your title for the record.
Absolutely. So I am Michael Jennings. I am the Vice President of Energy Delivery for the New Hampshire Electric Cooperative, and with me as well.
Thank you.
And we also have Josh Mazie, our Vice President of Operations. And Joe, sorry. I've known Joe for 5 years, but Joe DiPrizio, he is our first and I believe only operations supervisor we've ever had in Alton.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. So like I said, we're here to present some information, but also we really just want to have a discussion with you as well. So on the agenda today, we want to talk about our activities in Alton as of late. We're going to review some of the reliability, high-level data for the town of Alton, and talk about the role of vegetation management, some plans we have there, and then just have a further conversation with the select board. So the New Hampshire Electric Cooperative, if you don't know a lot about us, we were founded in 1939. Fun fact, we were founded by President Roosevelt, who created the ability for folks to get together and bring electricity to areas that didn't have it. So we were essentially founded to electrify the areas in New Hampshire that didn't have electricity. That's where our service territory became. So in 1939, Alton didn't have power in most of it, and that's why we were here to bring power. We are a nonprofit cooperative, so we are owned by our members. That means we don't charge more to make money. We basically, anything we gain extra in a margin, we return that back to our members in a capital credit. So we're always trying to balance affordability, reliability for our membership. We are actually the second largest utility in New Hampshire, one of the largest cooperatives in the country. And we have a district office that is actually based in Alton with 8 employees, and Joe's in charge of that. Specifically for the town of Alton, the town is fed from our Alton substation, which is actually right down the street next to the Aroma Joe's. If you ever swing by there for coffee, you'll see it. It's kind of down the hill out back. That feeds actually 4,600 of our members. About 400 miles of line come off just that substation. It's one of our larger substations on our system.
So I wanted to just share a little bit that we've been doing in Alton. Over the past year, we've been deliberately engaging with a number of the communities that we serve. And this year we participated and were a sponsor for the Winter Carnival. Incredible day, really cold, but also just really beautiful. And then we were here last month with the mobile food pantry, providing supplies and distributing that. It ended up reaching what we think to be about 450 individuals we were able to support with that. So that's something we're going to be continuing next year in the, these sorts of activities, so that we are not just seen as, providing the service, but that we're part of the community.
So for reliability in Alton, this is a demonstration of, I believe the town's experienced and has had more outages, especially in 2024 than recent years. And that's quite evident on this slide. You will see that there has been a pretty good decrease over the years until we got to 2024. One thing I'd like to point out on this slide is the total member minutes out. That's based on the number of folks that we feed from the substation. So that's not what each person experiences. That would be divided by the 4,600 that we feed from the sub. But the primary causes of these outages is broken down in this slide. And if you could go to the next slide, Peter, breaks it down in a little more detail here. So what we have and what's been the experience in this area, especially downtown, has been outages that are primarily caused by trees. And most of those trees have been related to major weather events as of late for us. So the category that's 56% major storm, those are 99% tree outages as well for us. So really, when you add that together, we have a 64% tree-driven outage. And then the other 36%, that is outages that are caused here by things that aren't on our system. So we can't classify what the cause was, but they're caused by an upstream provider. So for our Alton substation, and this isn't unique to Alton, it's the case for most of our service territory, we are a distribution-only provider. So we provide the lines that come from the substation to the home. But upstream of that, we're fed from another utility. So 95% of our territory is EverSource. We also take feeds from Liberty, National Grid, and other providers. So when they have a problem on our line or on the line that feeds us, unfortunately, since we're downline, it causes a lot of issues. So we've also seen not only a significant uptick this year because of tree-related significant weather events, we've had a significant increase. And Peter, if you wouldn't mind just going back one. Compared to previous years, you can see the transmission provider outages as well. We've had a very significant increase. So we try to work really closely because we're so dependent on that utility as well for that reliable service. We try to work really closely with them on identifying the cause and seeing what they can do to provide better reliability for us as well. So that is, less than 50% though. So we also focus on our system as well and how we can improve things. So if you could go to the next one. So what we've seen, and especially April this year, we had a particularly bad storm, which I'm sure most of you remember because it was a few days of power out. We call it Winter Storm Vicky because one of our employees who actually worked in the Alton area, we named it after her as she retired. But that was actually the worst storm we've had in the history of our system. It was the most expensive. We had at the peak 50,000 members without power. Total though, we had over 100,000 restorations and we only serve 86,000 members. So if that doesn't make sense, the reason is because our folks are out there when the event is happening. So they're out restoring power in the wind, in the damage. They'll restore it, they'll go on to the next one. And then they might get a call that that line went back out again because a tree went out. So that might get counted a couple times as a restoration because they're going back over and over as the damage keeps coming in. They're going back, unfortunately, to sometimes restore places multiple times. So we had actually more restorations, more members restored than we even had members on our system in that storm, which was pretty significant. Large number of broken poles, over 1,000 different incidents we had to address. And we had over 150 crews on our system, which is a new record for us. We've never had that many crews all at once just because of the amount of damage there. With those, we rely a lot on mutual aid, but we also have relationships with contractors that help us out in storm emergency situations. We also offer in major events, you know, when another state has a hurricane and we don't have needs on our own system, we offer mutual aid to them as well. So part of the benefit of being a cooperative, we work closely with other cooperatives to provide those resources and share those resources with each other. But one of the things I wanted to stress is 2024, we've taken a lot of data points from that. We found areas we can definitely improve on, but the main driver of it was significant storms that we had in this past year. We went about 10 years or so, because we're a nonprofit, we can file for FEMA for reimbursement for major storms. So our members don't have to pay for that expense. And we always do that whenever we meet the FEMA threshold. But we had gone probably 10 years or so without a FEMA event. In the last year, we've had 5 FEMA claims from major storms, just to show what the impact is on the amount of damage we've had on our system. And unfortunately, that impacts reliability. So we're also wanted to touch base on a few initiatives we have because we're definitely investing a lot of money in this area to help improve it. The first one that I wanted to discuss is our SCADA expansion program. So that's supervisory control and data acquisition. But what does that actually mean? Well, that means we're adding smart, intelligent devices in the field that allow us to minimize the number of members that go out when we do have an outage. And it also gives us a lot of data points and remote switching capabilities. So the old-fashioned method was, you know, you have to send a crew out there, look at everything, you know, maybe drive back and forth for a couple hours to switch the system around to get people back online. Now we can do a lot of that remotely. So we can restore power a lot faster by implementing these devices. And very recently, actually this year, we focused on Alton and installing those devices. So we added 15 devices, which is pretty significant for us in the area, which will definitely help in restoration. We also have the transformer replacement program going on. So we have a lot of really aging substation infrastructure, which affects reliability, as do most utilities. But the Alton substation was identified as one that is a critical need in the future, and we really want to focus on. So in fall of 2026, we're actually planning on reconstructing that just due to lead times and construction times. That means we're starting to work on it right now because it takes us a couple of years with lead times nowadays to even get the equipment in. So that's currently a work in progress, essentially. And what we'll be doing is rebuilding that with more reliable infrastructure. It'll help provide redundancy if we did ever have an issue. It'll help provide easier connections to roll a mobile substation in case there was ever an issue. We can restore power faster than in those instances. And so that's an important project for us as well. And that substation, once again, feeds the entire town. So all 4,600 of our members, which we count based on meters, not population, those are all fed from that Alton substation. We've also done things communication wise, because communication we've realized is really critically important. If folks are out and they know when they're going to be restored, it's a lot more helpful than getting the power back a little bit faster, but they had no clue when they were going to get it back. They needed to be able to make plans. They needed to know, do I need a hotel? Do I need to go get ice? Like, how am I supposed to prepare for this? So, and Peter's work and I and the rest of the company, we've really been focused on, one, we've improved the outage map. So we have a better graphic interface that allows members to get data better. Don't worry, if you don't like it, we still have a link to the old one as well. So you can always click on that anyways. We've done a really good job at improving our ETRs, especially over the recent months. So ETRs are basically putting the time on outages for members so they'll know when they'll get power back. And it's hard, and especially a major event when you haven't set eyes on everything yet, you don't know the extent of the damage, but we've cut that time down a lot on the length of time it takes to get ETRs posted, to get members the information. We also try to work with towns as well on specific communications they need. So, you know, if you ever need information about a certain area, reach out to us where we'll dig in further if we don't have that information already available. And then, like Peter showed, you know, getting more engaged with the community, more proactive engagement with community leaders.
And I think one of the other things we're looking to do in storms is if we know that an area is going to be particularly hard hit and, or, you know, either a few days beforehand or as it's unfolding, we want to begin to, instead of waiting for you to call us, we're going to call you and say, this one is going to take a while, right? Alton's going to be hit badly. It's going to be a multi-day event. So what do we do now to help people get through that? There's usually about 48 hours when people can kind of make it through. And after that magic 48 hours, they're done. Like they're just done. But if there's opportunities for them to get shelter, to get food, anything like that. So we want to reach out ahead of time to emergency management, first responders, other community leaders, because they'll often listen. They'll hear the information from us, but they'll listen to you. And if we can work together to say, this is a winter storm, Vicky, then we can all work together to help people make it through that process. Because a lot of it is that they're frustrated, right? And concerned. We understand that. And then you wanted to talk a little bit about veg management.
Yeah, I'll actually tag Josh in on this one as he's the expert here.
This was one of the questions I was gonna ask.
Good evening. Once again, Josh Mazie. I'm the VP of Operations, and I'd like to, take the next few minutes to talk about, how we maintain our lines and keep them safe and allow access to them to repair them if the need requires. So what is our vegetation management? It's just the clearing or trimming of trees and other veg from away from the poles and lines. And the reason for that is, I'll get into in another slide, but number one is for safety. Safety leads everything that we do, every decision that we make. And our concern for safety of the public is extremely high, paramount. So obviously, you don't want trees to conduct electricity to the ground. If that were to take place, it can dangerously energize nearby objects. Secondly, service reliability. We're in one of the most heavily forested states in the union. It's over 90% of this state is considered forested. So it's a constant battle to, keep the trees and the vegetation away from the power lines. And, which could impact service reliability. So we want to limit damage and, keep it far away in the mild to moderate weather conditions and access to lines during outage. Should the line, be impacted or any damage to the pole, if it's all in an overgrown condition, it's going to make it that much harder to, safely, efficiently, and quickly, respond with the necessary equipment and personnel to get in there and work it. If you have to cut a hole through a jungle to reach the poles, it's just going to add that much more time to doing the restoration. So, and, obviously that would improve the safety to the individual line workers. So in closing, the reliability has, been challenging. We recognize that, and, that's why we're very happy to be invited to speak. We're making some investments to improve reliability, as Michael has talked about. We appreciate being here and, happy to take any questions or comments or concerns.
It's been a good presentation. This was one of the questions I wanted to ask. How often do you trim back trees and vegetation? I know I've seen you go through town a few years ago and going on the major routes and cutting and trimming things back. How often is it every year?
It's
constantly.
We're constantly doing it, but it's not every year in one location. We endeavor to get onto a 8-year cycle. 8 to 9 years is, probably more accurate. With our integrated vegetation management program, which includes, cutting, the 30-foot right-of-ways where we have them available and ground to sky, we're really stretching out that growth cycle. Where applicable, we'll, apply some herbicide to kind of slow down that growth cycle a little bit and foster the growth of the lower growing species. So it's the tall growing species, the fast growing species that really, are a challenge for us. Think about it like your pines and, your some of your hardwoods and things like that. We've all had maybe maintain property and cut a stump or cut a tree down, and the next year you have whips about that tall.
Right.
So that's the challenge of, maintaining, the vegetation. Some years we can stretch it out a little longer. We have 4 arborists on that are all have our territory divided up, and they, treat it as their personal responsibility to maintain and patrol and keep an eye on it. We do have opportunities where we do off-cycle trimming. You know, if an area, you know, for example, you know, Joe reaches out and says, hey, I got this area that's, you know, growing a little faster, or we haven't been there in a while. Can you check it out? Can you squeeze it in? You know, it's causing me some problems. So, you know, we're trying to be proactive as much as possible, but we have to, if we have to react, you know, that's part of the plan too.
I'm sure you're aware of some of your primary areas that seem to be repetitive
Mhm.
outages.
Yes,
And I'm sure you're working on those areas like the replacement of the transformers and vegetation.
yep,
in
that's
those, 'cause
correct.
There's some areas that seem like they hit the hardest, like West Alton,
Yes,
East Alton,
Mhm.
and 28A in Alton Bay. It seems like those
Right.
areas get hit the hardest.
yes, yes, they do. It's a challenging environment that we work in. We live in a beautiful area. I wouldn't want to live anywhere else, but boy, the wind gets a great head start coming down the bay.
Certainly
And when it
does.
hits the land, it goes crazy on the trees and the infrastructure and people's property. And, you know, it's a challenge at times. In terms of repetitive outages, monthly, we have a report where if we have a device that encounters any more than 2 operations, we'll look into the reason, the cause, give it a little bit of extra attention to, you know, make sure that we don't have a trend. And, you know, if, and for, I'll use Joe as an example, but if you had a couple of operations on a device, you know, that, you know, 2 outages in that monthly span, say, hey, can you go check this out? I mean, maybe give it a quick patrol, you know, let us know what the vegetation management looks like, you know, if it needs any more. You know, do we have a phase hanging? So the electric grid, I mean, globally speaking, is the most complex machine humans have ever created. And we just have a little piece of it here. So, you know, we're always looking at it. We're, you know, trying to, you know, keep it in the best shape as possible.
Very good.
You have, I think, a pretty good system where when people call, that automated system that identifies where you are and the fact, hopefully you find out that you're part of a known outage. And even more hopefully you find out that it's going to be fixed in 5 minutes. That doesn't always happen, but when the cause is the provider, then there doesn't seem to be any further information about timeline. Is that anything that could be improved or corrected?
Yes, I believe so. I mean. Yeah.
When you have a loss from the provider, there's 99% of the time I have customers know as well.
Sure.
They get that, the second we get it, but we don't, can't get it in a 2 weeks. If we do have communication issues. Sometimes it does take that feedback.
But we know that our members are wondering, we're wondering, and if we haven't heard, we have direct lines, open lines of communication with them and, you know, but 2-way communication. Either entity has no problem picking up the phone and calling the other. We,
You mean you don't get a recording when you call them?
no.
I've got a question. These SCADA devices that you talked about, what exactly do these do? These report back any faults within the transmission?
All remote devices that have feedback. So, it gives us a lot of points, what the situation is about. And then we can use that to make decisions. So it adds a lot of remote switching. We don't, for half the call.
Okay, so it's not only a means of reporting back whether or not there's a loss, a power loss, but it's also a way that you can manually or remotely flip a switch to make the line safe for somebody to do the repairs and then flip it back on. And 15 of these devices over the 400 miles of transmission lines, is that, are we just a drop in the bucket at this stage? Are there plans to do the 15 more next year and 15 the year after, or?
Can you come up, please, and use the mic?
Sorry, put on the recording.
Yeah, no problem.
Recording and you might be not heard over there.
Yeah, no worries. So we try to focus on a few things, but the short answer is where can we put them to improve reliability the most and get the outages down, the member minutes down as much as we can. So we focus a lot on ties where we can do that switching between substations because that allows a lot of reliability reduction. Or reliability improvement, I should say. We also focus on areas that have a lot of members. If we can break that up, make it into smaller groups, so you don't have as many members going out, or you have abilities to sectionalize it and reduce the number of members that go out when they do go out. And also, maybe just areas that have poor reliability to begin with.
So I'd get back to my question about the 15 devices serving 400 miles, and what's the long-term plan for this?
Yeah, so this is something that we will always be doing, but right now we have an initiative to do more extensive build out. So we call it SCADA expansion. It's part of our strategic plan, and we will be finishing up within the next 2 years of the build out of our entire system. But within 2024, we focused a lot in Alton, a lot because of the events that we've had. And it was the first time we really deployed these devices in this area. So it should help moving forward quite a bit. But moving forward, we're going to be looking at where's our worst reliability areas every year and always adding devices to those areas. So this will be, this is kind of the original build out we're doing now, but it'll be business as usual for us going forward. Always a continual improvement every year.
So are all 15 devices in Alton?
They're all on the Alton substation. So the area that feeds the town, it goes outside the town a little bit, but it's mostly the town of Alton.
I have one more question, if I could. The couple of slides back, you talked about the vegetation not being the primary cause of outages in Alton.
No, so vegetation is, if I misspoke, it's tree related. The challenge is that most of the tree related outages are actually from trees outside of our right of way. So Josh and his team does a really good job of trimming up inside the right of way, especially where we have permissions to trim. The challenge becomes we only have a 30-foot right of way. We only have the rights to trim 30 feet. Now we'll work with property owners in towns if they have other areas they want us to trim more extensively, especially if there's danger trees, dead trees that might fall over and become a risk. But we're legally only allowed to trim up to that width unless we get additional permissions. The problem is when you have a 40-foot pole and then the tree is 50, 60, 100 feet maybe, and they always fall to the direction of the power line for some reason. They're going to cause an outage unless you could trim further. Yeah.
About
Thank you.
ice itself, ice and the lines themselves. This has been an ongoing, some of our winters as of late have had a lot more moisture content, rain versus just snow. So that's heavier on the lines. How are you handling that?
Yeah, so typically ice on its own on the lines is not a big issue for us. So our structures per the National Electric Safety Code are designed for up to a half an inch of ice. So they're can sustain a pretty good amount of ice. The problem comes when it gets on the trees,
And it falls.
then the trees fall and they fall on the lines. So
Because I asked that question because you do see a lot of heavy lines, and it may not necessarily always be the power lines, but the telephone lines and the and cable and stuff like that, that the ice really drags them down and takes them down.
they do. You'll see considerable more sag when you get that much weight on the lines, but typically if we had ice alone with no trees around, we would be able to withstand it pretty well. Yeah.
Michigan, CEO had just retired, been there for 25 years. They never had a FEMA event, 25 years.
Wow.
Wow,
Helps not to have trees. So,
sure.
you know, so and then when you get the ice, there's usually wind with that storm
Or heavy snow.
or heavy snow, or
That's
maybe
right.
it's all of the above. I think that's just the part we're recognizing, so, it's challenging.
Yes, I remember in the past, I remember some very heavy ice storms that we have that wasn't snow related, that was just all water. Just, it rained and rained and it's froze solid. Yeah.
Is there a formal definition for major storm?
Yeah, so we have, there's a few different definitions, actually. So it depends on utility is the short answer. There is an IEEE standard, though, that most utilities use for declaring what you would consider a major weather event. But the threshold for that is different for every utility. It's based on their historical outage data and the standard deviation from that. So what would be considered a major storm is basically what is considered outside the range of normal for that utility. And it's the intention of that standard is meant to exclude catastrophic events for reliability reporting reasons, because their utilities are, when the standard was developed, it was intended that the utilities would be planning for a normal storm event, but catastrophic would be something that, you know, that shouldn't be counted against them for reporting purposes. So I guess the short answer is it varies, but there is kind of a standard for it.
And you, the cooperative is putting quite an effort into internet now.
Correct.
Are you guys completely insulated from that, or has that become an additional headache for you?
I wouldn't call it a headache, but yeah, it's part of our job. It's we are an electric and broadband provider. So and it really fits with our mission. Like in 1939, when we were founded to bring an essential service to areas that didn't have it, it was electricity then, and now that's broadband. So you know, we felt it fit really well with our company, and it's kind of our new challenge to bring that essential service to folks that need it.
Is most of that underground or is it above ground?
It usually follows the pole line.
Okay.
So depending on if the electric's overhead, it'll be overhead usually, or if it's the electric's underground, it'll be underground. The good news for that is typically the trees hit the electric lines first. So it's pretty well protected from that. Not to say that there won't be damage to it.
And is there anything that the town can do to support you that we don't do now or we're unaware of?
Do you mean in regards to broadband or just?
In case of outages or a bad storm? I mean, obviously, we're gonna try and plow streets, that type of thing.
Yeah, I think, you know, if we feel like it's going to be a bad weather event and could be multiple days, if we think it's going to take us a while to do the assessment, if we have issues with our transmission provider and we don't have a lot of information, I think it's working with you to communicate that to folks and then helping to provide support for folks so that they are aware of it. Often what we find is that there's a sort of just it's human nature. People hear the information, oh, it's going to be a multi-day event, it's going to be a lot of snow, but I'll be fine. And 2 days in, they suddenly go, I'm not fine. And I'm going from, you know, maybe a 10 or 20 to 100. I've lost it. And part of my responsibility is our call center. And we see that. I mean, 48 hours in, there was a panic button, they are hitting the panic button, right?
Mhm.
And so they suddenly realize, you know, how do I feed my kids? I'm supposed to provide. I don't know what I'm going to do. It's cold. I'm not feeling really good. Like, what do I do? And you start to have this sort of crisis inside. And so I think if we can work with you ahead of time to let people know that information, begin to open up shelters. One of the things that we found that people really need in these times is to have their phones charged. So if we could set up a phone charging place for people to get their phones charged, then they can stay in touch. This is essential to daily life anymore. And so it's little things like that we can think about, but opening up, you know, shelters for food and those things and saying, you can come here, you can warm up here, you could get food here, you could get your phone charged. Then people are like, I don't love this, but I'm hearing it and I'm making plans.
Yeah, I think you make a great point, and the communication is key, like you started with. I mean, it is key. And I think, you know, if we know that we've got a major event coming, or we know that one has occurred and it's gonna be days, we can get that, our warming center opened up to the public in a
Correct.
quicker period of time.
Mhm.
Because I think we were a little hesitant not the last one, a couple storms ago, we were a little hesitant.
Yep.
Because we didn't know. I mean, hey, it's, it's gonna be, 12, 24 hours, whatever. It'll be done, and it wasn't.
Yeah, one thing that could help as well operationally is a lot of the delays early on for us are due to access. And so, I mean, definitely don't ever approach if there's down wires, but a lot of times to even get to where the problem is, the roads might be blocked, they might not be clear. It's a lot of times our crews that are trying to cut through to get to that stuff. So, safety first and always, don't approach anything if there might be downlines. But, let our crews handle that, absolutely. But if there's any way that, we could coordinate access sometimes, that would be helpful in situations and
Mhm.
cutting down the amount of time that it takes us to do outage
Sure.
restoration as well.
All right, very good. Any other questions?
No, I'm satisfied, but we got a hand up back
All right,
there.
you answered a lot of our questions. We're not open to public input at this time. But, like I said, I think that's been a good presentation.
Yeah.
Appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, New Hampshire Electric Co-op petition and poll license. For buried cable 193 Trask Side Road. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thanks.
Okay, so this is
This is,
for the buried line, and this is on Trask Side Road.
yes, sir.
This is involving between two poles.
It's from pole 30414/58 to one, it's to a residence.
To residents,
193.
okay, 193, I see it. Yeah, I was looking like there was two poles there.
Yeah, so this is just a drop down a pole and running to a residence. It
Okay.
happens to be in the right.
Underground, yeah,
Mhm.
pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve this petition.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Who second? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mount Major Snowmobile Club, permission request on Farmington Road. Please introduce yourself and.
Evening.
Evening.
I'm Paul Mason, 57 Loon Cove Road, just down, right around. And this is kind of an issue because the property on Farmington has changed hands and the new owners do not allow access over their property, which that's fine, not a problem. But I noticed on the town map that there's actually an 8-foot right of way next to that property.
Mhm.
And kind of a side, I didn't think of this when I wrote this down, but it's not marked or anything, so we could like get that marked so people know there is a right of way there. That'd be nice. But from the standpoint of the club, the trail used to go through the culvert. I don't know if anybody's familiar with that
Yes.
area. So this trail used to go under the road through that culvert. Well, that culvert hasn't frozen in many years. We just don't have the cold weather like we used to have. So we're trying to reroute, and we've actually submitted to the state to go across Route 11 where Rand Hill Road comes down, but we need access to the lake.
Mhm.
And that little 8-foot right of way is a potential way for us to get off the lake or get on the lake. and used mostly by, local residents.
And if you haven't been using the culvert per se
Yep.
for the last few years, have you been going across Route 11 and going on that property that's now not accessible for you?
Bunch of the local residents in that area, yes, we go across. One resident actually got a ticket because there's no trail
Trailhead.
specifically
Mhm.
that says it goes across at that point. So again, we applied to the state last fall. We have not heard back yet from the state, so that's something else I have to look into is what's
Must
going
be-
on with that
Must be
permitting and permission.
recognized trailhead to recognized trailhead, 500 feet for a fishing game statute.
Okay.
That's what he's talking about.
Yeah,
This
that's
correct.
subject
I
matter.
understand.
Correct. So we submitted plans.
Mhm.
Ruben, who owns the Alton, he owns that lot of land on the other side.
Sure.
He's already given us permission to go through his land. There was actually a trail there at some point in time. And so it's just a matter of clearing that up, and making a connection to again, any snowmobilers. There is D Trail. It's in the Mount Major Snowmobile Club. There's a trail labeled D, which does a big loop and goes right by. It's on the other side. And so we're seeking access to and from that.
And you're showing going across Mount Major Highway
Yep,
and then going across Loon Cove Road
correct,
and then running parallel with Loon Cove Road to go onto Farmington Road
correct.
onto the ice. And that's where the 8-foot
The 8-foot
right of way.
right of way is on
between
Farmington, yes. It's
Lot
between,
5016 and 5017.
that is correct.
How much tree growth and vegetative growth is in that right of way?
There's actually probably only 2 trees that would need to be taken. One is which is dead right next to the road and it has I don't know if the town mapped it or not, but it already has an orange strap around it. Again, I'm not
Mhm.
totally up to date on that. Could be the power company who's planning on taking that one down. And then there's another much smaller tree. It's probably about 6 inches in diameter. That would be in the way of the snowmobile. But again, I hadn't thought of it, but the foot traffic for ice fishermen, this would be an access for ice fishermen. And they could already just use the foot traffic or any, I know that some of my neighbors used to go across that. They were allowed to by the previous owner to go swimming. And so this would, again, let some of the local residents, give them some access to take a dip.
Is the intent to groom this at all, or is this?
No, it wouldn't, 8 feet really.
Doesn't need much grooming.
No,
Index something, you know? and then-
yeah, it wouldn't see a lot of traffic. It'd be mostly just local
The
residents.
local access, to get access really to, okay.
Correct.
On the last season or two, it's been a little difficult anyway to get on the ice right there.
It was
Anywhere in that cove and
difficult to get on the ice, period.
Yeah, anywhere on the
you know,
lake.
it's
You
been-
know, I
it's
mean,
been a little rough.
We haven't had the winter carnival that has been held in the
No,
parking lot.
no, we haven't had the ice runway for
Yeah,
2 years.
we haven't had the ice. And last year, I think our trail system was only open, I think, officially 4 weeks. We're not getting this, seems like every time we get a storm, it warms up and it rains.
Yeah,
So,
been the trend.
yeah.
So with the state, with Mount Major Highway, there's been no issues with them whatsoever of you crossing the road?
We have not gotten the official approval, correct?
Oh, you
We-
haven't?
We've submitted all the paperwork. We haven't heard back. I have to tap them on the shoulder and go, hey, we submitted that paperwork in the spring of last year. And so probably whoever does that, just, snowmobile season's just starting up. So we're starting to.
You're starting to get together and have meetings.
Right. Actually, there's a meeting underway right now when I'm finished here, I'm going to go to that meeting. It's over at the Veterans Clubs.
Yeah, NHSA providing any support with the state?
We apply for grants and they do give us grants.
Yeah,
So
but with regard to your request for this crossing with the state, I mean, I would think the NHSA might,
no, it's all local. So we have a trail master involved and the club itself.
yeah.
That's who the contact points are for this particular thing.
Most right of ways, and I'm not a lawyer by any means, are a means to access an otherwise landlocked piece of property. In this case,
There's actually a lot of landlocked Like I said, the, people who were right next door to me have no access to the lake anymore. They actually went to another neighbor because the people who bought that lot, stopped them. They used to be able to cross there and go swimming. And the snowmobile club used to go across that with the previous owner. The new owners don't want us doing it. We will, we respect their opinion. As for the local people, there's also a new owner. I don't remember the address. He moved in on Loon Cove Road and he's allowing the residents to swim off his dock. So for swimming, that's there. In the wintertime, the ice fishermen, some of them go across this person's property still, even though they put up a chain, they have private property signs and all that. I don't believe they're aware that there's right of way for them to use. And some of them actually go right along the road, and I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's really steep. And so it's actually a little bit dangerous for them to be, they have their little sleds with all their gear and all that, and they're traveling along there, whereas this would be much safer for them to have access. And there are quite a few, especially during fishing derby, that you'll see, a dozen cars parked along Loon Cove Road.
Sure.
They're all ice fishing.
Yeah,
So-
exactly.
So this right of way actually provides access to the lake
Correct.
for anyone that wants access to the lake.
It's an Alton town right away. Yeah, it would be for anybody.
Oh, okay, so it
Yes.
belongs to the town.
That's correct.
Oh,
Yeah, that's
why
he's here.
oh, okay, all right.
That's
That's a little gem of information I missed.
That's why I'm here asking the town.
Right, that's why he's here. Any further questions?
Yeah, I get I know that when a landowner grants permission to the snowmobile club, that they're automatically covered under a liability and policy. Does that apply to a town as well?
Well, Ruben told me the town, he used to be on the board, I take it.
Yes,
And
he was.
he said that the town allows snowmobiles to like cross town roads
Yeah.
or even go
Correct.
parallel to them. So I would assume this is the same issue if you're thinking of liability of
Yeah,
someone getting
just something
hurt.
that crossed my mind about making
Yeah.
sure that we're
Yep.
protected, for somebody who decides they're gonna shoot right into the lake and literally go into the lake.
Well, luckily, if they go into the lake right there,
It's fairly shallow.
it's only like a foot deep. Other than being extremely embarrassed, they're not gonna drown. Cold.
Right.
So Ryan, is this something that we need to vote on? I mean, it seems like this is town property and.
Yes.
Yeah, it would, it's town property
Yep,
and
we do.
it's a right of way that we control access to. It's not widely used for just open public access, but specifically where they're going to, and I would recommend that any part of any motion that we would stipulate that the snowmobile club be responsible for properly marking the access and controlling it, because obviously the first time a snowmobiler goes onto a neighboring piece of property, it's gonna become an issue. But that's not something the town's gonna end up having to deal with. It would be something on the snowmobile club.
We would actually put up a snow fence,
Sure.
as long as, once we find out exactly where it is.
Mhm.
And I went down and I spoke to the current owner. He's not too thrilled about the idea, but I said, he's already said people are still using his property. I said, look, if you allow us, we'll put up a snow fence and we will prevent people
Anybody
from going onto your property.
Yeah.
And just like we do, there's like ball fields and things.
Yeah.
We put up temporary snow fences to prevent people from riding on the ball field and, we do have a lot of landowners that when somebody doesn't obey the rules, we start to lose trail, and that's not something we want to do. We want to respect the landowners. We want to respect,
You're doing the right thing. Yeah.
we're trying,
Yeah.
we're trying.
Yeah. Okay. You want to make a motion or?
Good. I'll make a motion. We approve the Mount Major Snowmobile Club trail access over the town right away between lots 50-16-0-0 and 50-17-0-0 with the snowmobile club responsible for all trail maintenance and marking right away.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Very good.
Thank you,
Thanks,
gentlemen.
sir. Welcome.
Appreciate
You gotta get some snow.
it. Now we got a little work. We got to put up signage and
There you go.
all that good stuff. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Okay, fire station sign, chief?
Evening,
Evening.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Here to make a presentation or see if what the board's direction or opinion would be in replacing the sign that's in front of Central Station. It's kind of a quick little history of that. We had members of the department start with the 3 wooden signs that are on the building. The Alton Fire Department did some restoration, rehab on those. They look beautiful. If you haven't seen them, go take a look at it. They did a great job replacing those or rehabbing those. The next project we were looking at was trying to rehab the sign that was in front of the station, and shortly thereafter, it kind of basically, well, right initially it disintegrated. So the framing of that sign was just completely rotted out. As soon as we started to take some bolts off, the whole basically framework of that collapsed. So what was currently there is beyond any repair or remedy to kind of stick that thing back together. So went out to several different companies trying to get some quotes on different options, electronic sign, a similar sign as to what was there. Reached out to 4 companies, only one got back with a full quote with the 3 different options. We did get another quote today. I gave to the town administrator, but that was basically just for replacement of what was there currently. So they're apples and oranges with the 2 other quotes for the electronic sign. We don't have that, so just basically that one company responded. Questions or?
Yeah. You have the 3 different prices here.
Correct.
For the 3 different companies.
But one company, 3 prices, for
3, I'm
3
sorry,
options.
yeah, with this one company, yeah. Okay. And what is, I see that this one here is painting the post installation. I'm looking at the middle one.
The middle one, yep. So basically that is an electronic sign, 3x8 double-sided LED with the cabinet, painting of the post. So the only thing that was salvageable is the posts. I think they're a 4x4 steel square
I don't
post.
see those.
Those are
Pictures you sent.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are basically little sanding, paint, coat of paint. I think those are, we can reutilize those. The difference between the middle one and the bottom one is, I don't know if you got the pictures.
Yep.
Basically, they're putting an Alton Fire rescue sign made out of PVC above the, digital display with a kind of a roof, and you see it on the bottom there, just a little pitched roof, kind of aesthetically pleasing, I guess, kind of finish it off.
That one top section is what accounts for that jump?
At $1,900.
1,900.
No, yeah,
Yeah,
Unfortunately, they're not listed
they're
in the
in
same
a
order.
Are so.
The top one is $19,630 because it's double-sided LED.
I got you.
Yep. The middle one is the 21.56 acres. That's the double-sided LED with the PVC Alton Fire Rescue and the little roof on top of that. And then the bottom picture is the first one for the interchangeable letters for 39.40.
I got you.
Yeah, so
Sorry, that
they,
was-
yeah,
They weren't lining
they
up.
weren't in.
Do you know, I'm kind of assuming that there be no zoning issues with this as far as what our sign regulations are. I don't know what they are,
I
but
did inquire about that.
Yeah.
and
so we've already gone through this with the school and stuff, so our zoning regulations have an exception for electronic signs for town and municipal and school government buildings. Because those LED display signs are usually utilized for public addresses. So, and that's what we use the fire department sign primarily for. Any sort of, a lot of people in the community look to that sign for not only fire danger related items, but also upcoming voting, we use it as an informational sign So I would say that we do have the funding available. My recommendation would be to upgrade to the LED sign so that we can better utilize it for informational messages to the public. But that's just, that's the benefit to that jump to the LED display, is that you're not limited by just those 8-inch black letters that are 2 or 3 words. You can actually flash displays and have them timed.
You said we have enough for that. Where's it coming from?
Well, we can utilize money from the operating budget. We do have money left in there that would be able to cover this. But the other thing is this would also be covered under the building maintenance and improvement capital reserve.
Okay.
So if it pleases the board and we decide to make a motion in that direction, I would encourage that you give the latitude to utilize funding available in the operating budget. And should there be any residual, that you authorize the expenditure out of the capital reserve, the building maintenance capital reserve. I don't think it will resort to that, but rather than having to come back at that point.
Do you know how much there is in the capital reserve fund, ballpark?
I believe it's about 355, yes, 350,000 roughly.
So the top explanation, the changeable letter cabinet, I'm just recapping this, corresponds with the one for 19,000? If I have that right?
Yeah, the top one without the cap on it.
Without the cap on it,
Correct.
that's the one for 19,000.
Mhm.
Yep.
That's 19,000.
And you said you had another one come in today?
So we
Yeah, it's in your
had,
packet, it's right here.
correct,
That one.
that
That's
was
but just the less expensive one, right?
correct.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it was about $600 more than what the initial quote was.
Awfully expensive.
You said you reached out to how many other companies? 3?
There was a total of 4, 2, we had no response. This company did respond with this quote and said they were still trying to work on an additional quote for an LED sign. And this was started about 5 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago, reaching out, and just been difficult getting people unless you have any other contacts in the
no.
sign. But I just
No.
legit, I mean,
Mhm.
I'm open to any and all suggestions.
I feel like we're gonna, if we don't get more, I wouldn't say bids, but if we don't get anybody else in here, where that other company did that, came in with the 4,500, even to see where they come in at, is that, we have nobody else that did it. I don't know who to call. I wish I did.
Well, there's 2 there,
I'd help you.
but usually we get 3.
No, I meant we're not obviously not gonna get the basic sign. You know what I mean?
And there's a basic
There's
sign on
no-
this one too. We have,
Yeah, but there's no estimate of what that middle one would be. We don't get it from one guy.
right, it's just either way, it's an expensive sign.
Oh, yeah, very
They're
expensive.
both, either one of the second 2 are expensive.
Did you only reach out to sign company? I mean, I noticed that both of these quotes, one of is in Alton. I didn't even know we had a sign company
Oh,
located in Alton.
Wicked nice guy.
And the other one is in Meredith, was it, or?
Correct.
Did you stretch out any further, like Dover? Is
They go any further than Dover. The other 2 are also in the Lakes region
Mhm.
area. We can,
Would the board prefer that the chief go out and get a few more bids?
Yeah, I'd like to recommend Sundance Sign and Design in Dover. That's quite a bit of work for me in the past. They're very reasonable.
okay, yeah.
But yeah, I think getting it at least, one more
Yes.
quote and making sure they're all apples to apples.
100%.
And even if you can get a couple more,
Yeah.
and not even just not one more, if you reach out far enough, you might be able to get 2 more quotes.
I really like the middle one. I know it's a lot more, but
Yeah.
that middle one is really, really
Yeah,
nice.
it is.
I mean, it is, with the
And-
Alton Fire Rescue on top of it and everything.
Mhm.
It really
That
is.
has a little roof design over the
Yeah.
top of it.
And what's that roof? What was that roof structure made out of for that bid?
PVC.
It was all PVC?
My understanding, everything was PVC and everything with the exception of the LED signboard and
Yeah.
the mounts. It was all PVC.
I'll be honest with you, if it does come down to it, and they end up being the cheapest, I mean, you're talking about I understand it's a huge jump, but a couple thousand more to have that really nice roof on it.
Yeah, I
like-
think it is, and it's a statement about our town as
Well,
well.
yeah, it always looks better with that.
Yeah.
You know, having the plastic
you don't
insert
mind-
letters, I,
The consensus of the board is to have you maybe get a few more prices on that and come back to us.
I'll reach out more towards the seacoast area, including.
Yeah.
This, and then I'll be back to you.
Then we'll be able to compare a little bit better.
Yeah.
I know it's a big ask, but.
No, it's
we
not.
Really
Yeah,
think that.
Legit,
that
right, we
nice
put
one,
out the 4 and then we're hoping, and then it was just.
You know, if we can get this middle really nice one for a
Mm-hmm.
little more manageable price, I mean, that is a really nice sign.
Will do.
All right.
All right. Well,
Thank you. Thank you,
Enjoy
chief. You have a good evening.
Thanks, chief.
Okay, voting machine. Richard.
Yeah, those of us who were there. We should go forward.
We were all there.
Essentially.
We were all.
For a really fun day. That when that first machine failed, we were very fortunate insofar as the manufacturer's rep was on hand and had a second machine that could be put into service. I don't think that's their policy going forward. I think it was just because these are brand new. If that is their policy going forward, that's great. But if not, I think we should seriously consider the purchase of a second machine. And I have no idea what they cost. Because if that first one had gone down and we had no backup, we'd still be there.
Oh, we would have been in trouble.
We would have been in trouble. And with all the concerns, public publicity that's given to the possibility of voter fraud and all, any kind of a slip up like that just tends to stir that up. The other thing that I'd like to request from the manufacturer is a detailed written account of exactly what went wrong and what steps they have taken or will take to make sure that doesn't happen again in the future.
Yeah.
Right,
Um,
right. I mean, that should be something that, I think that was overlooked in the classes prior to the meeting of a reset for that, and even the person that came from the state wasn't aware of it and had to find out from
Yeah,
supervisors how to reset that machine.
I went to one of those classes and I came away thinking that machine is about the greatest thing, you know, and since sliced bread, and it probably is, but like many things that are brand new, apparently has a few gremlins.
Yes.
And lastly, and I don't think there's any cure for this, but the situation that we have for voting, where moderators and particularly the town clerk and the town clerk staff have to start that day at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning and work for maybe 20 to 22 hours straight. I don't know if there's any way to modify that or support them in some way. It's an ordeal. And it also sets up people for making mistakes, because after you've been at it for that long, I did the same thing. I sat there and checked off votes, as Dean was reading
We
it,
all pitched in.
and I blew it. I said, God, how did I miss that? But it's probably because I've been there since 7 o'clock in the morning and I was tired. So I don't know if there's any mechanism that the state would allow, or auxiliary moderators or any such thing as that, but sure would be nice to give those people something short of that miserable a day to look forward to.
Give them something on the end of it, you know, on
Yeah.
a day, not even a day, a half
Yeah.
a day, or coming in late or so, I don't know.
They
I think-
they did come in at noon.
They did. They did. They came in at noon and the next day. I think
We need them
we-
there the day.
we need to look into, and maybe this is something that the town clerk can do, is look into the state and look into what other avenues and other aids they can have to work with that. And then she can come back to us and explain what she needs, how many more people and stuff like that. They're the ones that are running that department. I think we should inquire with them and see what else they need. We were there, and fortunately, the selectmen were there to help. Plus, we had a lot of volunteers came in for the end of the evening. But there wasn't a lot of volunteers there first thing in the morning. And maybe that's where it needs to pick up a little bit, to have a little bit more help in there. But just a suggestion.
Also understand that, and I think Ryan mentioned this previously, there is now a computer-based system for people to do their initial signing in and registering and all. that is very quick and far superior to having everybody stand in line and depending on what initials your name starts with, you know, one line has got 40 people in it and the guy right next to him is sitting there with nobody. That I understand that New Durham has that system and right now is very pleased with it.
Mhm.
I don't know the details, but I certainly would support looking into it.
Oh,
It
definitely.
might make things a lot easier.
ID scanner, right?
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
I experienced it
takes
in
your
New Durham.
driver's license.
Did you?
That's why I mentioned it to
Yeah.
Dick when I was in
I
passing.
heard about it, so.
I can get, I can have Jen reach out, because I believe it's from the same manufacturer as our voting machines.
Mhm.
You know, it's like an added-on component. And New Durham does utilize it. They utilized it, I believe, over the last couple of elections. And they've been very, very pleased and had a good outcome with it. And I'll talk to Jen about getting some more information for the board on that, like what the cost would be and.
And at
how
the
we
same
would have
time,
to
reach
pursue
out to
it.
her about what can we do to help her make her job better and make it easier.
Okay.
And just like Richard was mentioning.
Yeah, we're
pretty
stressed out at the end.
Yeah, oh, yeah. I mean, it's
Everybody.
a long day and
That was,
whatever
yeah,
we
I
can
can't
do to
imagine.
make that process work a little easier.
I did also want to mention just to Dick's point, when you started about, you know, actually detailing what happened and what the remedy was to the voting machine. I'm not sure if the board saw it or not, but the moderator did draft a response for the public that went out on social media and the website that very next morning. Just because there was some talk on social media about, you know, the problems and suspect about what happened, what the problem was. So it was sort of to try to Dick's point, try to put some public ease out there and transparency as to what occurred, what happened, how it was rectified, and what we did moving forward. So I'm not
Yeah,
sure, like I
and-
said, I'm not sure if the board saw that completely, but that might be what Dick
Oh,
was
yes.
referring to as far as.
And also, I think what he's referring to, I don't know if that specifically, but counting absentee votes
Mhm.
and entering them into the machine. I think some people were questioning on how that was being done. If someone was standing there feeding ballots into the machine.
Yeah, they caught your stuff.
I had several people come to me and ask me, what was that all about? And
We're doing our
no,
job.
what was that?
You
I
know what
said,
it
no,
looks
those
like."
were absentee votes. I explained the process of how they're opened at a certain time. When the moderator says we can open them, they're researched, they're checked for their address to see if they're a person that's on the books in town. And once they're opened and it's again allowed by time frame to enter into the machine, those absentee votes get installed. And we had many.
Mm.
So if you saw a selectman standing there and feeding into the machine, those were the absentees. Excellent.
And that as going forward, there'll be more and more of those. You know, it could be very well 5 years from now. The polls will be empty and the absentee ballot stack will be a
Right.
mile high.
Okay. You all set, Richard?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Okay, old business, DPW cemetery mapping update, Old Riverside Cemetery. Good evening.
Good evening. Hey, Sam, how's it going? Brought the rest of my stuff up with me. I'm probably next door.
You can push that aside if you want to get it out of your way a little bit.
I'll be all right.
That's,
So yeah, continuing off of, the last discussion about the cemetery mapping with Chronicle there, I did.
Mhm.
We're able to reach back out to them and, see about adding Old Riverside to the same services that, we added to New Riverside.
Mhm.
They came back with a quote of $8,190 and that's gonna be for the same service, for Old Riverside that we're having for new, so going through, mapping the place, GPS coordinates, surveying all the headstones, drone aerial footage, and the software to manage it all.
Okay.
So that is putting information into it and allowing the public to be able to search it and utilize it as well.
I was just gonna say that the public can still utilize that.
Yep, just like the other ones. It'll put them all both in the same spot. They can go on there, search by name, search by. There's actually some genealogical stuff in there too. They can go back and look back through, but, it's open.
Refresh my memory, how much was it for the old cemetery total? What was that?
Don't have that one. Yeah, I want to say it was 7,400 in that area. I don't.
Okay,
I
this
don't
is
have it.
additional
I didn't bring it
74.
with me. This one is a little bit more. It is quite a bit larger than, New Riverside currently. But there's less in it, there's less traffic. Eventually, there's less activity going on. There's less people going into Old Riverside now, so there's less transactions.
Right.
So that's why the cost, I mean, although it is more, it's not drastically more.
No. no, I think if we're gonna do it,
We
for
got
one,
it,
we gotta
yeah.
do it for the other.
Oh, I think we should do both.
I agree. I think you gotta go all in on this.
Absolutely.
Just so you know, Stacy had the other amount is $7,830. It's about 430 more.
And it is bigger.
It is
Yeah,
larger,
right now.
yeah,
Yeah.
quite a bit larger.
Yeah,
So it's
Absolutely.
16 grand all in, right?
Yeah.
So do you need a motion for the entire 16 or just for the 80%?
Just for this one.
Just for the 80%.
Because we already approved the other one.
I'll make a motion. We approve $8,190. Where are we gonna pull that from, Ryan?
It was the CTC expendable trust.
From the CTC Expendable Trust for chronological digital mapping and database solutions for the Old Riverside Cemetery.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thanks for doing it.
Yeah, no, not a
Thank
problem.
you.
Yeah, and while the company is in town, at this point, they're just gonna do both of them at the same time instead of coming back.
Right, yeah.
So they've held off on starting New Riverside because they were waiting to hear on this one so they could do. Well, they had a crew out here.
Tell them tomorrow morning they can start.
Yeah. I'm not sure if it'll be quite that soon.
So while we've got you there, we added the roll-off truck that we had asked you about. The transfer station.
So I did put together a small spreadsheet here,
Mhm.
just outlining transportation costs. Associated with hauling our trash to waste management. Utilizing the numbers that we received from the proposed contract back on the 10th of October. With waste management. It's that was a 7-year contract on here. A lot of times you'll see I have 8 years laid out, 25 being highlighted. That's because we're still under the old contract. And waste management's gonna honor their cost for disposal. So we're just gonna have transportation. We're not gonna see the increase to $455 per trip until 2026 if we stick with waste management's current contract. So laying that out an additional 7 years, bringing us out to 32. You can see, we start out at $455 per haul.
Over
Waste
double.
management with a 5% increase every year after that.
Right.
To the 7 years. Bringing us in 32 to a total of $380,477 in just transportation alone. On that, I don't know which way you guys. Yeah. Going from there, so looking again.
This is a
It has to.
decision that I think we have
So-
to make.
Mhm.
Long haul.
Oh, I think so.
Go on.
Absolutely.
This column here,
Yeah.
truck operator,
Yep.
this is our cost,
Yeah, so,
and you kind of figured in an increase each year.
correct, yes, yeah.
But I was trying to figure out, there's a big drop off in 2030.
That's when the contract would end, so we don't own the truck at that point, so we would no longer be making the $61,650 payment.
Aha.
So it's just, that would just be that operator, and I did use a 3% merit on the operator's wage going
Mhm.
up, so that's why you see kind of a scale increase.
Yep. Okay.
Just factoring in that the driver would, like, again, a merit increase. I did look, kind of doing the mileage there, figured about 50 miles round trip.
there and back, and that's like, again, that's going to, Waste Management in Rochester, using the same 624 trips, giving me about 31,000 miles, 31,200 miles a year. A truck like that, I would expect to burn about 6 miles, get about 6 miles a gallon. Figuring you're going down heavy, coming back light. They are bricks though, they're horrible aerodynamics.
Right.
So that'll give you the $5,200 in fuel, which is already in the Public Works fuel budget.
It's in
for
that
25.
budget.
Then it just kind of extrapolated out there, the mileage that I would expect the truck to accrue over the years. And I know the last time I had mentioned 8 years kind of being the life expectancy of the truck. 249,000 miles isn't unheard of in a truck like that.
Yeah.
But you're starting to, in my opinion, get toward the end of its life. I mean, it is still a hard life for it. So 10 years, 312, again, the mileage is getting up there. But it is a severe service.
No, this truck will only be used dedicated to doing this. This truck will not be utilized for anything else in town except that, right?
For hauling waste. So I mean, it could be utilized in other aspects in town. Say we do end up doing a large roofing job or something like that. We can say to the contractor, hey, instead of us paying for you to dispose of all the shingles, we'll drop you off a dumpster and you can just dump it in our dumpster. We can haul it ourselves.
Yeah, you know, like a pound job.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
correct.
as far as daily usage, it will only be used for this, right?
Correct, yeah. As far as it won't be plowing snow or anything like
No,
that.
it would strictly be used for hauling.
Yeah.
Where will it be housed?
It would be housed up at the solid waste facility.
We have a facility to be able to keep it in?
I don't know if it'll fit in that garage or not. They are fairly long vehicles. I didn't really look into that as far as if it can fit completely inside every night. I want to say it would fit in that garage.
You think it'll fit in there?
Good size, yeah. It'd probably
Well,
be
do you
nice
think
length.
if it couldn't fit in the garage, it could have fit in one of the bays underneath the metal roof?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It could
'cause
be,
we're-
yeah,
'cause they're
possibly the snow
usually-
off it, yeah.
there's
It doesn't
usually
sound like.
spaces
Yeah,
there.
that's possible.
I got long.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely.
And how many times a week is that gonna haul?
So right now they're averaging about 12 trips a week.
12 trips a week.
Yeah.
That's what I remember
Yeah.
you saying.
12 trips a week. That's where I got the 624,
Yep.
12 trips a week,
Okay.
2 weeks in a year. Yeah.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah.
Just wanted to make sure they weren't gonna use it for anything other than.
No, that's a good
hauling
point.
Waste, yeah, that's all it should be used for.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
it's strictly,
It's pretty much
it's a
like-
roll-off truck. I mean, that's all it should be used for, just hauling debris of the tank.
Correct, yeah.
And you're
yeah.
also, we're talking about a couple of new containers.
Correct, yeah, like he is currently utilizing 3 30-yard containers at our waste managements, but we do have some that could be replaced. So
Mhm.
40-yarders.
40-yarders.
Yeah, would be more useful and fill the need that we got there.
Did you look those were cheap, those were, I mean, considered.
Yeah,
You said $8,000.
yeah, they're already
Was it? Yeah.
Yeah, I actually just looked at a place today in Seabrook that I didn't know was there. And now they're getting me a quote over for some new ones as well, so save on shipping them from Rhode Island or down that way.
I really think this is the way we gotta go.
Yes.
Did you price out trucks individually? Which ones do you like? Which ones-
I have priced out, I'm still would like to stick with the Volvo VHD. It's essentially a Mac platform, a little bit cheaper. I do have a quote from Custom Truck One Source for 243 for a 2025. They have 5 of them at last check, and it was in Virginia, I think. So I think there was a shipping fee like $2,100 to get it to New Hampshire. I did get another price for a Volvo VHD out of a place in Jacksonville or Tampa Bay. It was Florida, RDK trucks. And they were considerably higher. I do have the quote. I don't have it.
So 243 right now is the best we found?
Is the best we found. I am waiting for Ballard, Mack and Volvo to give me a price. They do have a cabin chassis down there. That truck is not built yet. So the other 2 are actually roll-off trucks right now. They're built, ready to go. So.
We don't reap a benefit from this until 2026. Is it necessary for us to rush into this? I mean, we've been granted a kind of a hold on the fees,
Yeah.
on the rates, I should say.
We have a year.
Yeah.
To get.
Yeah.
Is there a way to structure it so you could order the truck you want? Like, I understand these trucks are already built, but
Yeah.
are they spec'd out the way that you want them? Is there anything else that they don't have that you would have wanted? We're talking about 8 years. It's a long time to be stuck with a truck that doesn't have.
Yeah.
What you want.
Yeah, no, I honestly, I do feel this truck is what I would look for. The only thing I can tell is I would switch it from 24.5 wheels to 22.5, only because, so I could utilize the casings out of the highway department to, for recap tires. I know not everyone's a big fan of recap tires. I'm not either on, one of the highway trucks or a long haul truck, but for a truck that's going in and out of a landfill every day, recaps are the way to go. They're half the price, and you can put a brand new tire on there and run over a bed spring.
The only thing is the weight on those tires.
Correct.
24.5s, you'll get more weight.
You will. That being said, that I would look for this truck to be a triaxle. Again, just for future use, if the usage ever does increase to a point where that truck can't keep up, we could always add a pup trailer and do tandem hauls to that truck, if it was a triaxle.
Right, yeah, I was just talking about the tire size. You might not get the weight. You might have to stay at 24.5s to get your weight.
Gotcha. Yeah, I can double check that. I do know like the truck that Wakefield's running is 22.5s.
Do they?
Yeah, and I have weighed that. Your average compactor can is like 7,000 pounds, so
I
unless you're
I
really.
don't know you, I just, that's one of the reasons why they go 24.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
I know the last time, last meeting you were here, we were talking about the possibility of Rochester closing.
So, yeah, the facility itself, was told is from them, was permitted for 10 years. They are gonna look to add to that with the other side.
10 years from now?
10 years from
Oh,
now, yeah. So, and I did reach out to Casella, and I have still yet to hear back from Casella.
And that round trip is a little shorter than Rochester, isn't it, to Casella?
Probably a little bit shorter, but you're headed that way. It's kind of more mountainous. I don't know which way would really be
Yeah,
harder
good
on the
Where would you have to drop it off to Casella? You drop the whole container off and then bring it back? Like, how's that work?
I believe that they have a yard over there, so yeah, you don't know if you drop your container off and then haul it, and you'd have a, a swap program go on, which could cause problems with,
I was just wondering,
The amount of dumpsters
everything
we
goes to Bethlehem, I believe.
yes.
I don't know. So.
Nothing changed.
What do you think of, seeing a downside to Drew's suggestion about riding the current contract for the savings for this year and then switching over?
The cost of the trucks going up. They are ever, constantly going
You
up.
could lock them in with an order, right? And you could lock them in with an order and place an order for the truck that you want for delivery, mid 25, late 25.
Yeah, so I mean, we could definitely go out there and go through like Ballard Mac and go that route and then have a truck built, and that would definitely lengthen the amount of time that it would take it. And you would probably be looking at somewhere mid 25 before you got it. I
Depends
don't,
if the price is right.
yeah.
If it's considerably cheaper or even enough cheaper that you wouldn't want to go outside the state for it.
Yeah,
We have time.
yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
and-
you could get it without.
You can get, a better deal if you order as well, because for them, it's kind of a backlog of sales that, excites them and makes their books look good.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll see what they come back with. I mean,
Seth, can I just ask you a question for the board's
Yep.
benefit and my own? When you had the conversations with our contractor
Yep.
and talking about the possibility of us taking over the transportation?
Yep.
What does that look like time-wise to what Drew is saying? How much notice do we have to give them to get out of the year's fees? Like if we got a truck 2 months in,
Yeah.
3 months in, are we still locked in for the rest of the year with transportation, or, is that a 30-day thing? I just want to make sure that if it's gonna be at the first of the year,
Yeah,
that we're teed up at some point, whether it be the first of 2026 or 25, so we don't get locked mid-year into a.
Right, and
Gotcha.
that's
Well, you certainly could put a
Game
clause in there, right? I mean, a 60-day, mutual notification clause.
so the conversation that we had with Pete was they're gonna honor their price through 25, so as soon, we can't haul in 24, they wouldn't honor their prices, like if we had a truck tomorrow, they wouldn't, we have to
Right.
have a contract to haul in there and they wouldn't allow it, so. Anywhere in 25 though, they will allow it and they'll honor their disposal rates on the old contract, so moving into 26, we would still, the contract would still close December 31st of 25. And then we'd have to start
Oh, so the contract is good, current contract is good through
through this year.
25.
Through 25.
The next
25,
coming
through
year.
the end of 25.
Correct. So we have 25 is kind of a year to get a truck and get on our own feet, basically, and utilize, you know, and take advantage of the disposal rates that we have.
We still have time to purchase a truck, get it going in this 2025
Correct.
year.
So with all of that in consideration, I mean, it sounds like we wouldn't be putting this thing into, you know, there's no benefit to the town to start this in the year 2025, to start hauling our own. Right? I mean, we're looking at
You'd
a
have everything ready to go.
27.5 loss.
We,
26, however, we saved $99,000 based on current calculations. You know, so even if the cost of your truck went up 10 grand, 20 grand, we're still in the black on that deal.
so the only difference to that, just to correct that, there is a significant savings in 25 too. The reason why is the total cost includes the personnel and the benefits. Those are already in because in the operating budget for 25, because he's combining 3 positions that are already funded. So the only thing that's not funded in 25 or that we would be, so realistically, the only thing that we would have to come up with above and beyond is the 61,650. So there's still a savings. If we're at 155,555, there's still almost $100,000 savings. So on that first page, I did put line item numbers next to each expense,
Yeah.
because those are where the expenses are pulled out of. So because we have 3 positions that we didn't create new positions, they're already in there. There were 3 part-time positions that we merged together. So those positions, even in the default budget, were funded. We just didn't hire out for them because of the default. But the dental, the retirement, the medical, and the wages for those 3 all put in there are already in the default budget.
So that would be an individual which you would either not hire them this year and save that amount, or you would hire them and use them in other areas.
The money,
Already hired.
the money's already in the
Money's
budget.
already there
for the
to hire.
For this position.
for
I
that
understand the
position.
money's in there, but it
It's
doesn't mean
moving
you
up
have to
right
spend
now.
it.
Different.
Just because the money's there.
The money's here, they're not necessarily hired.
Right.
Correct.
Okay. So yes, so I follow your logic, Dick. So it could be,
You gotta start worrying when that happens.
yeah. So the savings can still be acknowledged. I mean, if it's money that we're not spending. Sorry, flashbacks to a conversation with my wife not too long ago. If we're not spending it, then it is a savings still.
I really hope he's watching.
Just savings.
But, yeah, so I guess I'm gonna stick to my guns on this one. I think that this is something that we don't want to necessarily pull into play until 2026. Ready to go, having all of the players and the parts and the pieces on the chessboard. Kind of my take on it. I also wonder if this is something that, I'm gonna regret saying this, but should this be something that the town should vote on? Because it's kind of a added function to the operations of this town.
You mean a warrant article?
Yeah, I mean a warrant article. And I'm just throwing
Thing
that
is-
out there. I mean, you guys know more about this than I do.
The issue that we run into with this, and it's just something to consider, it's not that it can't be done, but the first year when you go out, you're gonna end up funding it twice. And the reason why is because if if it's not in the operating budget, then we have to fund the contract for transportation. And then the warrant article will be funded too. So if they both pass, then you're gonna end up raising and appropriating the funds twice in that year.
Well, you could set it up so that if one doesn't pass, then the other one is subject to being voted on.
I don't know that you can do that with the operating budget. You can do it with 2 counteracting special warrant articles.
Yeah.
But the operating budget is all inclusive. I don't know that we can actually do it that way. I guess that would have to do some
Yeah,
research on
I
that.
guess I was losing sight of the fact that we're all talking about within the operating budget. I guess I was losing sight of that.
Well, I'm all for going with it. I think the substantial savings are much too great to be ignored. But I also think that, getting everything in a row so that we can hit the ground running, on Year's Day of 2026 would
Right.
be to our best advantage.
But no, I think it's to our advantage to take advantage of it, and get it rolling for 2025. And putting it into this year's budget.
You can even take that money that you're saving by not having to hire that individual right away in 25. And you know, I assume you can jump line to line with this and use it to help offset the deposit on the vehicle and,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah, if we realize more savings or more money in the operating budget, certainly the board can make the decision to allocate that money and maybe put a bigger deposit down on the truck or whatnot. It's not that we would necessarily be required to put it back into the general fund. We could utilize that, like you said, from one line to the other, bottom line budgeting.
So I think, Seth, this gives you an opportunity to maybe expand your shopping horizons too. If you're gonna have something made to your specs, truly made to your specs, you know, you may end up getting a more truck for the same money or a hair more.
Alrighty.
Any other questions?
You're talking about it that long term, just make sure what exactly you want.
Mhm.
Make sure it's what you want. If we're gonna order it.
Yeah.
Order what fits the bill.
All right.
And what will handle the task.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
But these, so he had 5 of these left. So if worst case scenario, if something does change, there are still 5 of these trucks.
Right now, yeah,
Right now,
there
right
was, there was 4, they sold those, and now there's 5, you know, they did this they build them, they sell them, they
Okay.
build them, they sell them, so they're,
They're selling pretty quick.
yeah, yeah.
Let's see what Ballard has to offer.
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
right?
Well, yeah, so the idea is that we'll be up and running with a driver and a truck situated so that January 1st of 2026, we're fully in operation. But just clarifying, that's.
Yeah,
We could
think
actually.
that's
physically
the
before that.
consensus of the board.
Yeah. Well, I just want to make sure, because it's going to take, I mean, between hiring somebody again, we're going to have to be, you know, probably March, April, start advertising, start going. By the time we order a truck, it's.
Yeah.
months out.
It could take 8 months.
Yeah.
All right, any other questions for the budget for, solid waste department?
Well, we have to approve.
We have to approve this budget, guys.
Yep.
This is the only one we haven't.
With those adjustments made.
Mhm.
Right? Yep. It's
The
already-
bottom line is the same. There's no
Bottom
change.
line did not change. It's still $395,521. That did not change.
I saw the changes right there. I will make a motion that we approve the DPW solid waste department budget of $395,521.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, I want to clarify, which version are we talking about? Because the 2025 revised version has shuffled the monies around to include the vehicle lease purchase. I think that we were going to go, at least my understanding, go back to the presented 2025 version,
I think
knowing
we-
that any savings on the hiring can be utilized toward deposits toward the vehicle.
I thought we had to appropriate the 61 to if we bought it mid-year, like if we bought it, isn't it, don't we have to cover that?
Well,
June,
that's what I
July,
was
August,
asking
September?
earlier was about, can we do
That's
some
what the
line
intent would
shuffling
be,
of the
is approving
savings
them.
within the budget?
So I'll do it under the under the 2025 proposed original budget. Is that the way that it's gotta be written?
But I think if the intent is to purchase a truck
We have to. in
mid-year
2025.
in
Yeah.
25, that we would use the revised
The revised one.
proposal because then there's money allocated under the vehicle lease purchase.
This one.
And it may come in.
But there's not enough money under the transportation line items. Because you've moved it up into that vehicle lease purchase.
Oh, to cover the transportation of the waste mid-year. I understand exactly what you're saying. Is there gonna be enough money in that line item to cover,
Carry it until mid-year.
to carry it till mid-year? Is there enough in there, Seth?
No,
I shouldn't have done that so quick.
It's 26,000, almost 27,000.
Except we're talking about this contract that would be running for so originally was budgeted was 90 grand, round numbers. And it's been cut down to 27 grand
27, yeah.
Mhm.
So
in
that'd be a
order to
third.
move 61,650 up to a vehicle lease program. But if we're gonna continue with the contract and the transportation as we're currently doing through 2025,
We can only eat up to 3 months of it, is
Yeah.
what you're telling me.
yeah.
I understand what you're saying.
So what
So
you're
it's
saying would
yeah.
be, your intent would be to stay with the original requested amount in this budget,
Yes,
but take the funding from the other three positions if we don't hire out till the end of the year and use that to purchase the truck?
or at least the deposit on the truck.
It's the demo, the transportation fees that are the problem. I
Yes,
understand.
yes,
I
yeah,
see what
yeah.
that.
transportation comes out of multiple lines.
Are we allowed to take money from those lines, the 402 and the 403, mid-year and allocate it for a truck lease purchase if we're allowed to? Are we allowed to do that?
Yeah,
Yeah,
as long as there's a line item to expend from. Even if, that's why we keep them open with $1.
And you can cover it mid-year
I'm sorry?
If we go with the original,
if we go with the original, you'll be able to
it'll
cover.
be fine. We'll be able to take money from this.
Yeah,
Right,
the money-
exactly.
Those two and put it towards the.
So put it
truck
towards
lease.
mid-year.
I think if you stick with the original proposed, there's less shuffling that would need to be
Okay.
done.
So stay with the original.
The bottom line's the same, it was
Yeah.
just putting that money into the lease purchase line to.
Just in
Right,
case.
exactly.
Yeah, the lease purchase line
We
will
can
be
always
one.
No, that
drop
was
from
good
that.
check.
All right, so I'll amend my amendment for
You'll
for
amend your
twenty
motion.
twenty-five,
You'll
amend
amend
my
your motion.
motion for the 2025 department requested, not the Board of Selectmen revised.
We have a second.
Second.
Yeah, you got it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it.
I'll amend my.
Okay, thank you very much, Seth.
We made you work for that one, so.
Yeah, sorry.
He's not gonna wanna come see us anymore. Send him over the wall.
Okay, moving along. Selectmen reports. Drew.
Yeah, the last budget committee meeting we had, we did a fairly decent job of getting caught up with the select board, but not quite. So we've got another meeting scheduled, I believe it's the 22nd,
Okay.
and hopefully we can wrap things up then. 20 what? 20th, the 20th. I stand corrected, the 20th.
Okay. Richard.
Nothing to report?
I have nothing to report.
The zoning amendment committee will be presenting all of our amendments to the planning board on the 19th. And also our planning board, I'll be both those. So it's looking
busy.
forward to that, looking forward to that.
Okay. ZBA had a meeting on November 7th. There were 2 variances approved for road frontage and lot line adjustment, and 2 continuances for a special exception and an administrative decision on contractor yard. We'll see those. And the other thing I just wanted to say is election day. I really want to thank the clerk's office for all what they did. It was a long day. I was very impressed with the turnout of people in town that voted. It was the most I've ever seen in my term of being a selectman. It was very impressive. People responded. I feel as though it went very smoothly with the exception of the glitch with the voting machine. Other than that, I think people were courteous. People moved along and it went very smoothly that way. And I really think it was a good turnout.
Definitely agree.
Yep.
And it was awesome to have all of us there. Everybody was there. That was cool.
And that was a first, with all of us there all day. All right. Moving along to town administrator report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First thing is to update the board that, the code enforcement officer, the fire station, the fire chief and the deputy fire chief had a meeting. I did include a memo, to me from the fire chief, regards to the meeting. So that meeting was regarding, gas line inspections. So right now, currently, the way we were operating is that the fire department was doing part of the exterior gas inspections for in-ground tanks and lines. And then the code enforcement or building inspector was being called out to do the remaining trench line work to the house. It was kind of cumbersome to have multiple inspections for the outside gas lines, when in the reality of it is the primary inspecting authority is the fire department when it comes to the in-ground tanks and lines. So that meeting was for one of them to take over and make it so one inspection is called in for all of the exterior gas work
a
of
good
the
idea.
home. And it was concluded that the fire department would take over all of the exterior gas line and gas tank inspections moving forward. So
I think that's a good
wanted
idea.
yeah, I thought that, that was intent of us to work together and sort of streamline operations, a little bit better, to better facilitate the needs of the community too. To that end, my next thing, to bring to the board and make sure I, can get a consensus from the board of support moving forward. I know there was some question about when the building inspector leaves to go on vacation or is out of town for training. There was gaps in inspection schedules. I did have a conversation and, looking to, in the past, we had backup support from Wolfboro when John was here. Unfortunately, the building inspector at that time in Wolfboro retired at the same time John did. And we haven't had any backup. I did have a conversation with, the Barnstead building inspector, Feb. And he agreed to help and assist anytime that the building inspector is out and they have gaps in their support. We are going to be putting a fourth warrant article to ask for additional help, part-time help. This is not filling that position prematurely. This is just in coverage needs on an as-needed basis, not as an employee. The only agreement in the ask was that we paid at a rate of $35 an hour for an inspection. And if there was any personal vehicle uses to be paid out at the mileage rate set by the federal mileage standard at that time. And he's readily available with his schedule in between the towns. He has a lengthy extensive career in building and building inspecting, both for the town of Barnstead and the town of Gilmanton. And he's done fill-in work for those communities as well, aside from working full-time for Barnstead. So as long as the board doesn't have any, like I said, we're not hiring him on as an employee, it's just as an as-needed basis under those terms, to support our building inspector and, times where she's out of the office.
Which would be when, for vacations and sick time.
Yeah, or training.
Training.
Sometimes they have to
So
do
the-
research training. and
There's
things.
there's not two hands in the bowl here, right?
No, it's just,
What do you mean by two hands? in a
You
wall?
know, Norma's running the show. As far as getting her help, that's gonna be put forth and.
That's
and
gonna be put
part- Like
forth.
he said.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
this will strictly be when she is not here.
Right,
right.
right. Alleviate the pressure and when she's not here.
Yeah.
Everything's
backing
Everything backing up. It makes sense. And I'm all for it. I
Yeah.
think that makes a lot of sense.
I agree.
Okay.
General consensus, everybody, I think everybody's okay with it.
Okay, sounds good. One last thing I have for you. I received a letter from Belknap County in the mail. I put it on the desk this morning. So basically, they're looking for response to see what communities have interest in possibly forming a community power aggregation, through a power coalition. Community power coalition. Basically, it's to pool resources, impossible cost savings, local control, and enhancing consumer protections to the energy for our community members. If it's something the board wants to explore, I can respond in the positive or in the negative, moving forward. Like I said, right now, they're kind of exploring, the want, the need, and interest of communities right now. And then obviously, when they come back with more information from here, I will definitely bring it to the board. But at this point, they're just looking for a response.
I think so. See where it
See
goes.
where it goes, and then at least say, okay, well, let's hear what they've got to say.
Doesn't hurt anything.
Savings and electricity demands. Yeah. How's the rest of the board?
Doesn't cost anything to look.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. All right, I will respond in favor
All right,
of exploring it further.
thank you.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, let's go right to, approval of October 2022, 2024 public session.
Well,
Did I skip over?
no,
it?
yeah, you did.
No, I didn't.
No,
Oh,
that-
that's my bad. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I was just looking at it. I didn't.
I'm
know that.
sorry. No, I looked right
Approval of the
over
minutes
the
first.
minutes.
I'll make a motion, we approve October 22nd, 2024 public session minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 What about,
Okay, now the approval of October 22nd, 2024, non-public.
Leaving.
so just leaving them sealed?
Yeah, so.
I make a motion, we leave October 22nd, 2024 minutes, non-public session sealed.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Consent agenda.
And now consent agenda. It's okay.
I will make a motion. What was it for? Those are the liability waivers. November 12th, 2024 consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we have no request for appointments this evening. We have no public input because we have no public present.
Negative.
No non-pub this evening.
Oh, I don't have.
We'll entertain an adjournment.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, done. Thank you.